If you're not riding your motorcycle this winter, how you store it now decides whether it starts perfectly in the spring or whether it's going to cost you money. I've covered winter riding recently, but today we're talking winter bike storage. I'm putting my street triple into hibernation and I'm going to show you exactly what I do, and I'm also going to explain one of the biggest mistakes riders make that potentially causes damage when they're storing their bikes during winter. So let's get straight into it. Before storing the bike, make sure you give it a good deep clean. So get rid of all the road grime, get rid of all the dirt, and especially the salt. The combination of salt and moisture can quickly lead to corrosion. Give it a good dry. Use a leaf blower, compressed air, or a microfiber cloth, because one of the worst things you can do for corrosion is store your bike when it's wet. And to further protect from rust, I always use ACF 50. Now I've already did a video covering how to best apply this. I'll link that in the description below. But in short, using whatever rust prevention product you may want to use, coat all the exposed metal parts, likes of the bolts, the fasteners, any areas of the frame, engine casings, or anything that can potentially oxidize over time. Now from experience, ACF does a fantastic job of seeping into all the nooks and crannies while the bike stood through winter. Always remember to avoid your brakes and tyres. Next up is fuel. So if you've got a steel fuel tank, make sure you fill it up right towards the top, because that reduction in space will help reduce condensation and help prevent internal rusting of your fuel tank. If you're planning on leaving your bike long term, you could add fuel stabilisation in there. If you're going to do that, make sure you take the bike for a little run out just to get it flowing all the way through the system. It is worth noting that modern fuels such as your E10 and your E5, due to their ethanol content, they generally degrade faster during winter. So if you are going to store your bike long term, go for E5, which has the 5% ethanol over the E10. If the bike's stored outside or anywhere that's damp, I would recommend taking the battery out of the bike and putting it somewhere inside. If your bike's in a dry garage such as this, then it's perfectly fine leaving the battery in the bike. But one thing I always recommend, regardless of where you've put the battery, is keep it on a trickle charger. Now I use an Optimate trickle charger, but any quality brand will do the same job, and it keeps the voltage of the battery at a safe level all through winter. Before storage, I'd always recommend checking your tyre pressures and adding another 1 or 2 psi on top, just to slightly reduce the contact patch with the ground. Cold temperatures can harden the tyres, and if you keep the bike in the same place for too long, you can create a flat spot. Ideally, you want to lift the bike off the ground, so if you've got a centre stand, use that. If not, you can get a paddock stand like I've got here on the street triple. But worst case scenario, if you've got neither of those options for lifting the tyres off the ground, try putting blocks of wood or rubber or whatever you have lying about to keep the tyre directly off the cold concrete floor. If you do an oil change, just before you're putting away your bike for winter, that will be an ideal time to get it done. Old oil contains acids, moisture and metal particles that can cause corrosion while the bike sits. The fresh oil will leave a protective film on the internal components, and if you do change it, always remember to take the bike for a short ride to fully circulate the oil through the system before you're putting it into storage. And the second last thing to cover today is your chain. Winter moisture and salt can quickly ruin an unprotected chain, so always clean it thoroughly and apply a quality lube to protect the rollers and the O-rings to prevent rust. This will also help the links from stiffening up. And last but not least is one I see and read a lot of people doing, which is when their bike's in storage, they'll come in the garage, fire up the engine, let it tick over for a few minutes, switch it off and then leave it again. Now these short starts don't let the engine or the exhaust reach a hot enough temperature to get rid of the moisture. So effectively what you're doing is letting condensation build up within the engine and the exhaust, which can lead to more corrosion. In my opinion at least, what you're best doing is either leaving the bike completely alone or taking it out for at least a 10, 15, 20 minute ride, good old Italian tune-up, before bringing it back into your winter storage. Well, I hope you found this video useful, and if you've got any top tips on storing your bike through winter, leave them in the comments below. But as always, I hope you've enjoyed watching the video, and if you have, don't forget to like, comment and subscribe, and we'll catch you in the next one. Cheers!